Welcome back, betting pros. My name is Andrew Erickson, aka the Props Prophet, and today I'm breaking down my top 10 prop bets for the NFL draft. Because there's no better way to enjoy the festivities and the Fantasy Pros live draft stream than some skin in the game that you can easily keep track of if you use the Betting Pros app. Now, before I get to my picks, if you want a chance to win a premium one-year subscription to Betting Pros, your place to start betting smarter and not harder. All you have to do is subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now, comment below this video, and that's it. Be announcing a winner right here on the channel. So make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. Now, let's get to the top 10 best prop bets and free picks for the 2024 NFL Draft. Under 11.5 defensive players drafted in round 1, plus 125 DraftKings Sportsbook. My latest mock draft 4.0 featured under 11.5 defensive players drafted, and it featured just 4 quarterbacks being selected, and the Chiefs selecting a cornerback at pick 32. So I also included only 6 wide receivers being drafted, despite the betting line being at 6.5, and 10 offensive linemen being selected, with the betting line set at 9.5. And still, the under hit at 11 total defensive players drafted in my latest mock draft. All in all, this draft is just too jam-packed with wide receiver and offensive talent. The offense is just too good, especially with receiver and offensive line talent. So not enough defensive players are going to be selected here. I like the under on them being drafted in round 1, under 11.5 defensive players. Next up, total quarterbacks drafted under 4.5, plus 175 DraftKings Sportsbook. We have 4 quarterbacks locked into round 1. There's no doubt about that. Then it comes down to Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix hearing their name called on day 1. But given Penix's injury history, I'd say he's more likely to fall into day 2. Did this last year with Hendon Hooker. And it seems like the only thing with the Denver Broncos, they're the only team that's high on Bo Nix. And if they don't take him at 12 overall, he could also experience a dramatic fall in the draft. Note that NFL draft expert Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com, very plugged into what NFL teams are doing, has not included Nix in either of his last 2 latest mock drafts since the NFL Combine. Nix was in his first mock draft. So at plus 175, the implied probability is 34%. So I think that this is really closer to more of a 50-50 proposition. So I love the value taking the under 4.5 quarterbacks being drafted in round 1. Next up here, New York Jets position of first draft pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, offensive line, plus 145 via FanDuel Sportsbook. I just think that they need the offensive line more than any other position. Whoever the top tackle remaining on the draft board will inevitably be the Jets selection at 10 overall, after they missed out on the top tier in last year's class, thanks to Bill Belichick. And even though they added during the free agency period with a few immediate Band-Aid fixes, Aaron Rodgers isn't getting any younger. 33-year-old tackle Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses aren't move needers. I don't think it's enough for really them to just avoid drafting a tackle altogether. They're definitions of Band-Aid fixes. And they're both 33 years old. I mean, do the books think that Tyron Smith is going to play the entire season, or Morgan Moses? He's also in the last year of his deal. So with wide receiver depth more plentiful than offensive tackle in this draft, I mean, unless it's Brock Bowers getting drafted by the New York Jets at 10 overall, I am very confident it's going to be offensive line over wide receiver. So give me that at plus 145 via FanDuel Sportsbook, especially after they added Mike Williams during free agency. Dolphins, position of first draft pick in 2024 NFL Draft, edge/defensive line, plus 210 DraftKings Sportsbook. On defense, for the Miami Dolphins, Jalen Phillips will be up for a new contract at the end of the year, and it comes at a really bad time, with Miami's defensive line missing guys that lost in free agency. To add legitimate insult to injury, Bradley Chubb's Week 17 torn ACL adds another wrinkle to the Dolphins' pass rush woes into the next season, and no team is spending less across the defensive line than the Miami Dolphins. I mean, the trenches on both sides for this team have been absolutely decimated. Although they threw more bodies at the defensive sideline by signing a flurry of free agents, Deshaun Hand and Shaq Barrett are really the only guys that could actually be difference makers. So I don't think the defensive line is really finished from a drafting perspective in this year's draft. And GM Chris Grier has shown a willingness to draft edge and defensive linemen highly. Last 5 drafts, when Miami has had a first-round pick, they drafted a defensive lineman or edge player in 3 of those drafts. 4 of those drafts included a defensive lineman or edge player in rounds 1 or 2. So Miami has met with 2 of the top edge rushers in this year's class as well, Laitu Latu and Jared Verse. Next up here, Rams, position of first draft player in 2024 NFL Draft selected, cornerback, plus 600 bet MGM. The betting markets are overvaluing the loss of Aaron Donald. and ignoring the Rams' clear connection to selecting cornerbacks in this year's draft, because I'm looking at what Les Snead has done since becoming the GM in 2012, I think they're going to add more talent to their secondary. The Rams have drafted more defensive backs in the first 3 rounds than any other position. In 2022, they drafted 2 cornerbacks and a safety with 3 of their first 5 selections. And after completely foregoing any defensive back in last year's draft, I think their draft strategy is going to normalize with secondary options in 2024, even if they added guys like Darius Williams and Tre'Davious White. White tore his Achilles in week 4 last year. He's played 11, 6, and 4 games over the last 3 seasons while dealing with injuries. He's hardly a reason to avoid the Rams drafting another cornerback. And last year, the Rams skated through last season without any investment in their defense. No team had less money invested in the secondary than the Rams. They finished 21st in pass defense DVOA with a no-name secondary unit, and that's impressive, but there's obviously room for growth for a team that ranked 32nd in PFF's coverage ranking. Number 5, Marshawn Lloyd to be first running back drafted plus 600 on DraftKings. There is no clear RB1 in this class. It's the Wild Wild West. Therefore, we can still get great values on some of these odds for the reverse running back selected. For me, the best bet right now is USC's Marshawn Lloyd. His underrated status as a top running back in this class alongside Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks has me buying Lloyd to hear his name first among the running back class at 6-1 odds. Per Sportskedia's NFL draft analyst Tony Pauline, many believe that Lloyd will push Benson as the first running back off the board as a major pre-draft riser through the Senior Bowl and NFL scouting combine. Lloyd also has ties to current NFL coaches from his time spent at USC and South Carolina, with both the Commanders and Chargers. Those teams have combined 6 picks on day 2 inside the top 80 picks overall. Next up here, Byron Murphy II to be the first defensive player drafted plus 1,600 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Atlanta at pick 8 overall is where I feel strongest about the first defensive player being selected. With defensive head coach Raheem Morris taking over, he might flip the script and look hard at the highest ranked defensive player on the Falcons draft board. I think it's going to come down to cornerback versus D-line, but I wouldn't completely rule out an interior pass rusher as a contrarian pick for the Falcons. Morris did so as much in 2 of his last 3 seasons with the Buccaneers as the previous head coach, with selections of game disruptors like Gerald McCoy and Adrian Claiborne. And aside from the quarterback selection in his first draft as a head coach, every other selection Morris has made with the highest draft capital has been on a defensive lineman. And as the Rams defensive coordinator last year, LA's defense ranked first in interior pass rush win rate. One of Murphy's closest comparables on the defensive line is Kentavious Street. Street was just re-signed to the Falcons. So give me Murphy at 16-1 odds to be the first defender selected. For shorter odds, it's plus 950 for him to be a top 10 pick. Still, I prefer the longer odds given the fact that Murphy to Atlanta is the main scenario where he's also the first defender selected. Number 3, Drake Maye, quarterback, 4th overall pick, plus 900 on FanDuel. So I recently took a deep dive into new Patriots de facto GM Elliott Wolf, see if I could unearth what he looks for in potential franchise quarterback in my historical trends article over on fantasypros.com. After doing some digging, I felt JJ McCarthy actually checked off a ton of the boxes and the criteria that Wolf looks for in a future franchise quarterback: leadership, winning mentality, intangibles, body language, and youth. And then I hilariously heard on from our guy Tony Pauline that Wolf is pushing hard for McCarthy. That's the narrative from other GMs around the league. So I don't think it's a smokescreen given McCarthy's body of work at Michigan to link him to the Patriots at number 3 overall. Therefore, if McCarthy does become a Patriot at 3 overall, it opens the door for Maye to be the trade-up quarterback target at 4th overall for teams like the Vikings or Denver Broncos. Just given the landscape of the current odds for the quarterbacks, I think this is the best bet for the longest odds. Number 2, Joe Alt, Notre Dame offensive tackle to be the first non-quarterback drafted, plus 1,500 over on ESPN Bet. If you read my draft prop bet card on bettingpros.com, you know where I've been fading Marvin Harrison Jr. We continue the fade for the Ohio State wide receiver to be the first non-quarterback drafted. This time, it's on the basis that the Cardinals will be trading down from number 4 overall. That's just quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that leaves the Chargers on the clock with their highest ranked non-quarterback available. I feel strongly it's going to be an offensive tackle or a trade down proposition. But with all the quarterbacks gone, they won't actually be able to trade down. So going with offensive tackle makes so much sense here, given what they've done with their offensive personnel during the offseason under the new tutelage of Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. They don't want a number 1 wide receiver to be a run blocker in a ground and pound rushing attack. Again, the Chargers are favorites to be selected offensive linemen with their first pick at minus 125 odds. So if they pick at 5, it's likely going to be Notre Dame's Joe Alt as the favorite selection as the first non-quarterback drafted, presuming a trade-up has already transpired for the 4th overall pick. If you prefer to play it safer, in the case that a trade doesn't happen at 4, you can also just take alt at plus 470 to be a top 5 pick over on FanDuel Sportsbook. And then last but not least, we got to get spicy here to end it off. J.C. Latham to be the first non-quarterback drafted, plus 7,500 over on DraftKings Sportsbook. It's the longest odds in the video. Alabama's right tackle J.C. Latham at plus 7,500 in the same spot. Same narrative play with the Chargers selecting offensive lineman first, but it's for the reasons I'm doing Latham over alt, is that he plays right tackle. The Chargers already have a franchise left tackle in Rashawn Slater. This way, they don't need to flip alt to the right side. LA spent a lot of time working out with Latham at Alabama's Pro Day. Meanwhile, alt struggled somewhat at the combine during the right tackle drills. Because if it's not a pass catcher at number 5 overall, Harbaugh's going to draft an offensive lineman that could further improve the run game. Specifically at right tackle is where the team needs to upgrade from Trey Pipkins. Given that Latham is the highest ranked pure right tackle in this class, he could be the first offensive lineman drafted. One of Latham's strengths is his run blocking power. That's music to the ears of Harbaugh in his run heavy offense. And on the surface, nobody should really be surprised if an offensive tackle from Alabama gets drafted as the first non-quarterback. Latham is also plus 1,500 to be the first offensive lineman selected, which I also like on DraftKings, plus 2,500 to be a top 5 pick on ESPN, and plus 750 to be a top 10 pick per DraftKings Sportsbook. That's going to conclude my top prop bets and free picks for the 2024 NFL Draft. Enjoy this video. Be sure to give it a like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. And again, the draft being just a few weeks away, you want to sync up these bets with the Betting Pros app. Make sure you go download that at the App Store, and also follow me, Andrew Erickson, on the BP app, and check out my full NFL Draft prop card only at bettingpros.com. But before you go, again, if you want a chance to win a premium 1-year subscription to Betting Pros, your place to start betting smarter and not harder, all you have to do is subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now, comment below in this video, and that's it. I'm announcing a winner right here on the channel. So make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. Thanks for watching.